Hello and welcome to this edition of Chief RBC, and we are going to be talking today about the UV texture editor. I don't want to spend a lot of time kind of talking about it, so we're going to jump right into it. A lot of you who are familiar with Maya will know that if you come up to the UV editor at the top in the modeling panel, you can just open up your UV editor right here. Now, some of you are going to notice that yours looks a little bit different than mine. Um, the main difference that you're going to find is that the UV toolkit is not located where it is. I usually tear it off and move it to the side just so I don't have to deal with it. Um, and we're going to jump right into this. Now, before you can start UV unwrapping, you want to make sure that you have your custom shelf turned on. I'll show you what it looks like when we turn it off. Turn it off, there's no custom shelf there. Turn it on, I can start putting tools up in here. And you do that exactly the same way you would do it inside of the actual Maya window. So in other words, what you do is you're going to come over here and you would say, for example, let's say I wanted to put a line tool up there, you would hit Control and Shift, hold those two down, and then you would left click and you'll see that a line is now there. If by chance you make a mistake, you just right click on the icon and delete it. Now, right from the get-go, we have the 0 to 1 space sitting right in here, and we have absolutely nothing sitting inside of it. And I'm going to take this little character and I'm going to show you how I would UV unwrap him. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the UV editor and I'm going to planar map him right down the Z. Make sure that I'm in object mode again. You can go object mode anytime by clicking over here into object mode or right clicking and going into object mode. From this, we're going to quickly cut this character up. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to right click on him and select some edges. Now I want him cut down the side, so I'm going to double click right here and you'll see that it goes all the way around. I don't need it to cut underneath the feet, so I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to left click the lines I don't want. Now, what you want to do when you're cutting, you can come up here and you can hit cut or the letter T right there. Or if you're like me and you love your hotkeys and stuff like that, I create my own key, which is Alt O. If you don't know how to create those and you're one of my students at UVU, you can ask me later and I can show you how to set up hotkeys and stuff like that. We can do that in a different video as well. To try and keep this one small, we're not going to go ahead and do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this person up in a logical area and make sure that everything's all cut perfectly. So I'm going to pause from here and we'll come back when he's cut. All right, now that we have him laid out a little bit, I'm going to kind of quickly just rotate around him so you can kind of see what I've done. One of the things that we try to do is hide the seams as best we can on this particular character. We are trying to hit the areas that will have probably the least amount of distortion. And I kind of like to think of UV mapping as working in a sense like on a pair of clothes. So I kind of cut it up in that way. So right off the bat, we have him now cut up. And our next set that we need to do is we need to use the unfold option on him. And I'm going to show you that right here. If we come under modify, we're going to go to unfold down at the bottom. Now make sure you open this up. You'll notice that I have a hotkey here, Alt U, but we're going to create a button for this one. And before we do so, we want to make sure that we have the correct options. Under our method, we want unfold 3D. Make sure legacy is turned off. If you know you have bad geometry, you might want to turn on fixed non-manifold geometry. I personally leave it off because it just causes more issues. Under iterations, set it to 1 and leave the layout UVs turned off. Make sure that present cell or prevent self border intersections is turned on and prevent triangle flips is turned on. For right now, we're just doing a 1024, but you can go all the way up to a 4096 if you want to. Make sure that room space per pixels is set to 0 for the time being. And what we're going to do is we're going to start here with the head. I'm going to go inside of the UV editor and go into face mode by right clicking. I'm going to move him up just so I can see what's going to happen here. And then we're going to hit apply on this and watch what happens. Okay, this is called a pelt mapper. Now, pelt mapping basically lays things out as flat as can be. If we go up here and we turn on our distortion values, you can see that it's kind of laying out fairly decently around the face. But it looks like we may have to kind of cut a few additional cuts in order to get rid of the blue and stuff like that. I would suggest that if you're going to do that, that you're probably going to want to start at the top of the head. So I'm going to cut this right here by selecting that edge, and I'm going to hit Alt O, which is of course my hotkey, or if you're into just going to menus, just come down and hit cut, and you'll see that it cuts, As long as you have your border edges turned on, you can see what those edges are like. And then let's come back here. We'll double click on it. All right, now that we've created the unfold options inside of the unfold, we can come down here and create a button for it. So we're going to go to modify, come down to unfold, hit Control Shift, and create that unfold button right up here on the top. I'm going to click that, and you'll see that it starts to lay out a little bit better. Now I may want to cut out the inside of these eyes, and I'm going to do that right here by going into Edge mode and double clicking, and we're going to cut those right there. Okay. Grab the face one more time by going into face mold, and you know I had I told you before I have a hotkey for this. Instead of going up here, I'm just going to hit Alt U. Now it does the very best it can, so it's going to slightly rotate things a little bit, and you'll notice that that happens. But once you get it to a point where it's starting to distort less, you'll start to kind of feel a nice feeling here that, hey, we're going to get some good looking stuff. All right, so we're getting it to work a little bit more. I may want to cut one more line right down here on the middle, or I may want to come down here at the bottom and do a couple of cuts right here. I'm going to try that. Let's go ahead and hit Alt O, which will allow us to cut it again. And we're going to select the face, and once again, lay it out a little bit more. And you can see that my distortion is starting to happen to be less and less as we go about this. So I'm going to move that right up to there. Let's go ahead and unfold these eyeballs and stuff like that. You'll notice that they turn completely white. That's great. That means very little distortion. And what we're going to do is go down through these ears, and we're going to lay those out, lay those out, lay them out. Just keep going down and hitting your button as you go along. Okay. In my case, I'm just hitting Alt U, which is the button that I've laid out for this. So we're going to keep going down the front of this, and let's lay this out again. Now, when I do UVing, just so you're aware, I use a lot of hotkeys. Hotkeys will make UVing go super duper fast, and so you want to kind of get your own set of hotkeys kind of set up and stuff like that. And I, for one, the ones I use are Alt O. I use Alt O to cut things. So if I grab an edge right here and I want to cut, right here I hit Alt O. Okay, and you'll see that it cuts it. I use Alt L for sewing, which is move and sew. Now really quickly, there's a difference between the two of these. There's sew and then there's move and sew. Okay, you always want to use move and sew when you're cutting things up. So I would suggest that as you go about your stuff, never use the sew option. I'm going to show you the differences between the two. So if I go into edge mode right here, let's lay this out real quick. Let's do a quick hand layout. We'll hit Alt U is what I use for my unfold option. Notice how beautiful that lays out. We'll do the bottom of the hand, Alt U again. All right, and what it does is it lays it out to the best ability that it has and tries to keep distortion as low as possible. Sometimes you'll find that something smaller or bigger. Don't panic at this because we're going to show you something that will work for that. So I'm going to hit Alt U right here. Once again, Alt U. All right, and for the inner mouth, we have teeth that are inside there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt U and show you what happens. Because it's a pelt mapper, it's going to lay it out the best possible way it can. We may have to get inside this mouth just a little bit. I'm going to rotate so I can see it. And I'm going to start cutting the edges probably along right there. So you'll see that it mirrors over on this side. Same thing. We're going to hit Alt O to cut that, or just cut. I'm going to go ahead and cut probably right here as well. Okay. Now when we go to unfold that, it starts to lay out a little bit better. And you'll just keep doing this until you get a perfect layout. Because we're in a rush, I'm not going to go too far into this. Now, we have laid out our entire character. Oops, we missed the feet. Let's go ahead and make sure that the bottom of the feet's right there. And you'll see that when I went and laid those out, they became these itty bitty tiny little things. And it's like, what do I do with that? Well, don't panic. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And I'll show you that in just a second here. I'm going to pause. Sorry, I had to pause to go get a quick drink. Anyway, what we're going to do here is I'm going to select all of the faces here in the UV editor, and we're going to go up to modify, and we're going to lay them out. Okay, now let me open up the layout options under modify, and I want you to see this right here. So our packing resolution right now, we're going to use 1024. I'm not fixing any non-manifold geometry because I don't have any, and I want to make sure that Look again right here, method unfold 3D is turned on. So we're going to come down here, we're going to look at all the options here real fast. We want to pack together, none of them we want overlapping. I would set your packing iterations to 5. Anything above that really doesn't change anything. So we're going to go down here, make sure that rotate shells is turned off. Our texture map size will be 1024. We want to make sure that's in pixels, not in UVs. Shell padding, I roughly always set mine to about 20. I want about 20 pixels in between each shell. And then as you come down here, it says shell distribution. All right, you can shell distribute through the centers. I just leave it at distribute. And then because we come down here, packing or region, leave it as a full square. Scale mode, we want it to be uniform. Now this is important. I told you before not to worry about the scale size of hands and feet and stuff like that. Watch what happens when we hit uniform, and now we're going to go ahead and hit apply. It takes just a second, and all of a sudden it's going to lay it out, and everything's going to be the exact size that it should be. Okay, you'll notice that the feet, which were really tiny before, are now exactly the scale they should be. What this does is it looks at your whole entire model and it says this is the exact scale it should be.